Radio City Talks Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
Welcome back to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. I do hope you are well. We're live on Radio City Talk, but we're also available as a podcast, which you can check out via our audio boom page and also on iTunes. You can listen to previous editions of it as well. You can email the show if you want to get involved as well. Tell us your stories, offer us your own insight for whatever reason via the email address mick@radiocity.co.uk. Thank you for all your reaction to last week's episode with Jake Mills on the show. We always get a little bit of extra info as well in the podcast as well, so you can subscribe to that one via iTunes or again check it out via Audio Boom. mick@radiocity.co.uk. I'm going to take a look at addiction and various issues that surround it on this week's part of the show, because we've got a guest in the studio from the Brink, which is a dry bar based in Liverpool. Been open for a number of years now, and David Barnicle is the man who's in the studio alongside me. David, great to see you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sometimes people talk about mental health now. It's very much at the forefront of people's minds, but then there's a lot of people like yourself, who've been working in this field for a number of years. Just tell us about the theory behind the Brink.
Okay, so the theory is that for a long time, people have obviously suffered with addiction, and usually to get in the course of seeking help or even receiving assistance, it's usually in somewhere, it's like an isolated environment, where people can be kept away from the triggers of mainstream society, because as we all well know, there's not a lot that you can do going out and about to socialise that doesn't involve a drink or a drink being around or something like that. So recovery has tended to exist in, as I say, in a bit of isolation, and that's caused, a bit of a divide in the community. You've got people in recovery and you've got so-called mainstream people. There's no such thing, as it happens. There's a big massive overlap. But, people in recovery are often fearful of entering back into mainstream society. Are they going to be able to do so? Are they going to be able to be, looked at in the same way by people who don't understand? And then obviously you've got people in this so-called mainstream category sort of looking over at recovery and addiction and seeing what it is, and also having a bit of a fear about what that is and why people behave the way they do. And, a lot of ignorance comes with that, but only through fear and misunderstanding. And so you've got like these two separate camps of people, that don't really join up in the middle, because there's a lack of understanding, just because of the way society is structured with social spaces.
Well, I was going to say, and a lack of places where it's felt that those two groups of perceived people can actually come together. When we talk about the fact you're a dry bar, not serving alcohol, people presume when you talk about recovery, you're talking about recovery from alcoholism, but you're talking about whole different sways of recovery, right?
Definitely. The one main group that we have every day, the Brink of Change, which is a 2-hour group every day with support workers, is just based around the notion of abstinence, and that can be abstinence from alcohol or drugs. We have counselling specific for alcohol, but the main thing is, with those services existing on site, but the venue itself being a mainstream venue that serves mainstream food and does mainstream events, you are getting that mix of people. And so what's happening by default is all of those barriers that I've just been talking about, and fears and, the ignorance is dissolving right there and then within the building. People are starting to understand addiction, and people in recovery a bit more. And people in recovery are finding that they're able to access mainstream society a little bit more by being in there, being part of a social scene and a community.
Well, I wonder whether or not, when people go into a space like this, that they're half expecting, a section where like, all the normal people, you sit on this side, all the recovering, the addicts, like it's like a freak show that happens in the side. But actually what you're saying now, you go in, and it's you're just in a space, and it's a space for everybody.
And in terms of percentages, it's always hovering around like 50-50, 60-40 on either side of people that might be in recovery or not. But what's starting to happen is, the more that you're getting, the more that we're learning as a society about what addiction is, and this what ties in with the mental health, is that addiction is now, according to newer definitions of it, which are, addiction is any behaviour that has a negative consequence on the self, but you feel powerless to stop. So that can be anything, you know what I mean? When you think about it, food, sugar, technology, it's actually affecting a lot more people than what we think. It's just that we always thought that it's the much more extreme cases of addiction that was only addiction. But, it's not. It's a lot more it's a lot more wide reaching than that. So when I'm talking about this divide between people in recovery and addiction and mainstream, you sort of start to see that that's getting very, very blurred now, and it's just one spectrum of people with various extremes or or kinds of addiction in different things.
When we talk about that, because sometimes people will go, well, technology. You think, well, I'm not addicted to it. I'll put my phone down anytime I want. I would just pick up my phone and have a look at it. Well, I can put it down whenever. Hang on a minute.
Can you?
And I think sometimes the thing when you think, well, it's not it can't be an addiction, can it? It was only 15 hours I spent straight on a computer game. Yeah, and then you think, well, actually, is there something? It's something about the brain. The way the way your brain is wired.
Yeah.
That makes you want to do that. That makes you want to get
hits
into it.
Off it. Like if you were to go in one of those, brain scans, you'd see that the brain and the release of endorphins or the release of serotonin is happening with them little likes that you're getting, and is happening with certain kinds of interaction. And it's the same place in the same actual brain circuitry and the same stuff going on as when people resort to, more extreme forms of addiction, shall we say. It's all linked in, definitely. But then there's one thing with the behaviour, knowing if you're powerless or not, but then there's the thing of, okay, what happens to your behaviour when you come away from that thing? And that's another sign then of, whether there might be an addiction there.
I know you've spoken in the past about the fact, because you're a driver, you're not serving alcohol, you've talked about the virtue of having clarity of thought. But you get the clarity of thought is, something that people will strive for. And if you're dealing with anything in your life, the idea that you want clarity of thought is quite an important one. There's something that people look for. And I wonder whether or not actually that plays into those other things outside of the drink, outside of the drugs. That idea, a space where you can go, be it a physical space or be it just a mental place you can go to where you can think for yourself about how you're feeling. And I wonder whether or not that actually the benefit of that to a society as a whole is under-talked in society at the moment.
That's an interesting point, that, actually. I've never really thought of it on those terms, just having somewhere where you can go and think without being under the influence or interact or socialise. I mean, I suppose it's what we've been saying for as long as we've been open in a way, but yeah, I think I like that notion of, the clarity of thought, and the more I think about that, that's got to be beneficial, you know what I mean? Getting used to being around people and doing things without mind-altering substances. Yeah, definitely.
And I know you had Kate Middleton visited their Brink a few years ago now, and I remember at the time a big thing was made of the fact that as a space, it's not, although it's a bar, it's not like it's not down in a cellar somewhere. It's not. It's like a wide open.
Won't tell you what
space.
goes on down there.
It's like got daylight in it.
Yeah.
And it feels like a space that people want to actually hang around in. It's more akin to something you'd have at home rather than some of these hit places where it's like little portholes and stuff like that.
Secret kind of knocks on the door and all that stuff. I think it's a word I never ever use to describe anything else. I'm not cool enough to say it, but one of the words that people say, oh, it's funky. It's a funky, fresh, vibrant, pleasing on the eye, aesthetically, and just it's a relaxing space. But I think the word that gets used a lot, by lots of different people, sort of unknowingly, is safe. It's the safety factor that people like. And what's sort of come to light through conversations with people over the years is that people didn't realise before when they were out that there was always this sort of some kind of little niggle in the back of the mind that something might happen somewhere with those group over there who might have a bit too much to drink, and there's always like a part of you that's sort of scanning to see where there might be an issue coming from. And it only really come to light when people started coming to the Brink and saying we don't have that feeling when we're in here, because it's like we didn't realise that feeling was there until it was gone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I wonder whether or not actually, you guys have been, Liverpool city centre for a number of years, and there's similar projects sort of around the country, but not that many. When we're talking about spaces where you can go out in Liverpool, in a major, European city, and feel that level of safety, where it's simply, because drink is not a factor. But I think you've also created an environment where you think maybe feel a little bit less anxious because you don't have any preconceived fears about what you're going to go in there, that people in there are of a similar mindset to yourself.
Yeah.
I think that the fact that is there is testament to the work that goes on there, but also the fact that you'd expect more places like this? Because I sometimes walk into a bar and I feel like I don't feel comfortable here. These aren't my sorts of people. I don't understand. You know, there's people dress in a certain way. They're ordering drinks, which I don't understand. I think people have those natural where you look for your own safe place, which is why for many people it'd be a pub that they know or a pub that they've gone to for years and years and years. But you can create an environment there without the alcohol where people can go, I can come here and I can feel safe, and yet I can still have a night out. Yeah,
it does act as like a bit of a magnet to that thing in people that does want that safe space and that place to pursue a bit of well-being. That's, I'd say, if there was one common element to the people that go there, even people who may feel as though they're millions of miles away from recovery and addiction, I'd still say there's quite a lot. There's an element in people, whether they know it or not, that they're pursuing some aspect of either just socialising, as you say, with more clarity of thought, or pursuing well-being of some kind, and it might be a big search. They might be in need of like full-scale recovery, but they might just be in need of a bit of information from one of the events, you know what I mean, or a juice, a healthy juice.
Well, I was going to say, tell me about the drinks which are on the menu, because people think dry bar, it'll be water, it'll be cans of pop, but you've got all sorts.
Okay,
there.
So there's a mix, and obviously we do cater for the people that want the sugary treats. And just sort of going back to, I mean, this sort of ties in, but going back to the fact of the sheer amount of spaces like this, I mean, it comes down to economics, basically. You think of a city centre space, most city centre spaces are paying their rent and doing what they're doing by selling loads of alcohol. You know, so with taking that out the mix, you've got to look for other ways to ensure your survival, do you know what I mean? So obviously we're not going to rule out the drinks that are seen as treats and nice things for people. You know, we're not going to say, oh, you know, you get nothing but health in the Brink. It's not just health in that sense. You can come and enjoy a sugary drink, but you can enjoy the safety of the place and access some form of well-being or recovery. But on top of all that, you know, the sugary treats and stuff, you know, you do have all your teas and your coffees and your variations of that, but also the mocktails and the smoothies, many of which, especially now, are going towards the health side, and the fresh presses. You know, we've had the juicer in there since it was open. Thankfully, I think a lot more people now are pursuing the fresh press side of things, and you know, the fruit and the vegetables only in the drinks, and there's loads more places doing that now, which is good to see. But yeah, that's been a common feature from the start, and it makes sense, you know, for us to have the range there.
What does the Brink look like at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night?
Pitch black, because we're shut by then. Yeah, we close at 8 o'clock.
I was going to ask you about
these days,
because people will think, you know, does it operate in the same way as a venue, and it's different, isn't it, because of the nature of it and because of the environment that you find yourself in. What is peak time? When can people get the full Brink experience?
Okay, well, I'll answer that and then I'll come back to the other one, because it's not altogether true, but peak hour, I mean, we serve food from 12 till 7. So you've got your peak dinner time and then, you know, tea time, I suppose. That's when there's a lot of activity. But you've also got when our groups are on, and you have, like, you know, between 15 to 20, maybe more people accessing the group support at certain times, and it's quite lively then as well. But yeah, I mean, sometimes we do stay up until 8 o'clock if, for example, there's an event on, a worthwhile event. So that's my field, you know, that's where I organise the events programme. Funnily enough, you know, the ones that we had 3 of the days, not in the week just gone, but the week before, was the Psychology Fringe Festival. Mm-hmm. So that was amazing. You know, that was all geared towards this. That was, you know, broaching mental health issues, but not in a way where it's like bullet points on a board and someone standing there with a suit and tie on going, oh, blah, blah. It was all different kinds of theatrical, poetic, musical, interpretations of mental health themes. So a much different way of getting the information out there or getting people to think about them things.
And when you're there, is there a bit where you stand up and go, right, everybody, come over here, we're now going to talk about addiction, or come over here now, we're going to do a little bit of a theatrical event based around mental well-being, or is it just sort of part of the vibe of what's going on?
No, well, it wasn't an event that was of our making. It's the actual Fringe Festival in partnership with, I think it was one of the universities in the city. I think it might have been Liverpool, but I'm not sure. And definitely in partnership with one of the Manchester universities. It was all they're doing. But obviously they were looking for venues to host all this. So in terms of that particular event over them 3 days, I'm just facilitating and just doing what they need rather than taking an active role and saying, OK, we're going to do this and we're going to talk about this. And
I guess what I mean, though, is if you're in a bar and someone starts strumming a guitar, naturally you start finding, oh, who's this, what's he playing?
Okay.
You might carry on your own conversation, but you might, pay attention. Was that the sort of vibe that people were going in there? Maybe not even necessarily been aware that the event was on, but find themselves engaged in it?
Oh, no, it was taking centre stage. And so, like 80-90% of the people that were there for what was going on. But, the nature of the Brink and the way we operate, people are coming in unaware of that what's going on. They'll choose to, cast a glance and get involved, or just carry on with their own chat. Do you know what I mean?
I guess what I'm saying is, can you get people who aren't expecting a mental health event, say, just to sort of naturally partake in one and think, well, this is a perfectly normal thing to do, to have a mental health conversation in a venue in town without feeling like you're being brainwashed or hoodwinked or you're falling into some evil cult or something like that. From what you're saying there, that can happen.
I think, it definitely does. I mean, there's been times when we've had an event on before with, you had Jake Mills on here recently, did
absolutely.
You? So Jake Mills done an event with Angela Samata, who was last year's Merseyside Woman of the Year. So she was nominated for the BAFTA for her documentary on life after suicide. Regarding their ex-husband, and Jake was talking in relation to his own mental health. So we organised a big thing along with John Moores University, and during the event, especially early on, it got into deep subject matter, like quite intense. And me being the facilitator of the event and looking to see how it's going and looking to see reaction on people's faces and having to monitor that constantly. My thing is like, okay, if people are coming in and seeing this, what are they going to think? Exactly what your question's driving at. And so it did get to the point where it was getting quite intense, and there was people in there who come in and not expecting that event, and you could sort of see the uncomfortableness with it. But I've come round to the thing that I think a little bit of uncomfortableness is all right sometimes, because it tends to result in people come round. Do you know what I mean? And at first it's that uncomfortableness, and I'm thinking of like a couple of people particularly who I remember looking at during the event, and you can see that they were like that, but they'd stayed, and by the end they were glued to what was actually being said. It come round to being a little bit lighter. But I think and it's that wariness that people have. It's the reason why blokes won't sit next to each other and go, "How are you, mate?" "Yeah, I'm all right." "No, but how are you?" Because it's the uncomfortable idea. They go, "You know what? I'm struggling." Yeah.
And I think that thing is, as human beings, we try and avoid it, don't we?
Yeah,
I think that's the thing where you try and avoid that thing. That you've got people there talking about suicide, either an attempt to suicide yourself or someone that you love, care about, involving themselves in a suicide attempt. Of course it's difficult. Of course it is.
Yeah.
But actually that's why the rewards are then talking about it and sharing the stories are greater, because when you start doing that, you realise that those stories are there for everybody.
It's breaking through that sort of that film of uncomfortableness, where it's like we stay away from that, but that sort of feeds it a little bit more. I mean, there's a balance with it. You can't just start running out and shouting in everyone's face, you know what I mean, about them kind of stuff. There is a balanced and a more sort of tactical way of doing it. But I think that's why it's okay in the Brink, because people sort of half expect, with us being the kind of venue that we are, that maybe that kind of stuff is going to be going on from time to time.
Where can people find out information about particular events or things that are going on with yourself, and if there are events or speakers or people that they want to come down particularly and talk about or hear about?
So it's all on our website, thebrinkliverpool.com. The events get updated monthly. They go out to about at the moment about 2,000 email contacts, which I'm constantly adding to. So if anybody actually wants them sent directly to them, you can just get in touch with the Brink and go on our mailing list. More often than not, our social media contains, on a daily basis, all the stuff that's going on. But if you're not into social media, as I say, you can get it from the website, and you can be delivered email or otherwise the actual events list, the events and services. What
have you got next on the agenda? What have you got planned?
Okay, well, I think in keeping with what we've been talking about, just a little bit aside from events, what we're looking at recently is trying to work with the universities and trying to collaborate on research projects regarding the more subtle forms or the more modern forms of addiction. So, we're recognising through our work with various people and various organisations that the technology thing and the social media thing and the gambling that's maybe intertwined with the online or otherwise is now a massive deal, and it's sort of like a ticking time bomb, and it's affecting younger people more so than ever. It's affecting loads of mental health. And so we're really trying to push to get some kind of research done and offer something in the form of more mainstream addictions, as they like to call them, which of course opens the floodgates to people who before now might not have even thought that they were anything to do with addiction, but it's like, oh, actually I've got a bit of an issue there with that. And so it's widening the definition of addiction. It's lowering the intensity of the taboo. Hopefully, if it all comes through, but that's what we're planning at the moment.
Lowering the intensity of the taboo. We've had tackling the stigma, chasing the stigma, lowering the intensity of the taboo is a new one. But I'm glad you said it on this programme.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take that with
the
me.
Brink Liverpool, if you tap that into any of your search engines or any of your social media feeds, all the information about who they are, where they are, and how you can get involved in it is all there, how you can sign up to the newsletters and so on and so forth. Dave, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate you coming on.
Can I just say it's a great idea, the show, and I think it's it's about time someone done a show like this, and I wish it all the best of luck, and I hope everybody out there continues to listen to it.
Hey, thanks very much.
Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
This is Radio City Talk.
OK, if you want to get involved in the show, drop me an email, mick@radiocity.co.uk. I've had lots of people coming onto the programme, and various people bring up different subjects. So there's a subject which we've touched on in like the first or second episode. You still want to bring it up, that's absolutely fine. Just mention it in reference to something that's been said, or if there's something that's relevant to you, maybe a subject you want to see us bring up on the programme, absolutely. Drop us an email, mick@radiocity.co.uk. If you don't want your email reading out on the programme, make that nice and clear on the email as well, so I don't give out your name or anything like that if you don't want it giving out. Of course, you might be in a period of recovery, as we were talking about with David Barnicle before. You might just not fancy your name being read out on the radio or on a podcast. So mick@radiocity.co.uk. Loads of stuff that's going on from a mental health point of view. Something I wanted to touch on now is a conversation from the back end of last year with the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police, Andy Cook. Now, he was speaking to our reporter, Adam Phillips, about mental health and the police is dealing with mental health, about how the police deal with people who have mental health issues, but also, and an interesting idea, how people within the police can develop mental health issues as a result of the things that they see within their work. We're going to take a little bit of time now to listen to this. The Chief Constable of Merseyside Police, Andy Cook, speaking to our reporter, Adam Phillips.
Well, I'm here with Chief Constable Andy Cook of Merseyside Police. Andy, thank you very much for joining us. When you first spoke to us, when you first took up your position, you said that mental health and the issues surrounding mental health is, I suppose, the biggest challenges or the most important thing that you would like to see at this moment, and it's the biggest challenge sort of facing current and modern day policing. I just want to look sort of more in depth of the kind of issues, I suppose, police officers face on a day-to-day basis. They, of course, are out there sort of treating mental health problems as well as solving crimes, but also that aspect of dealing with their own mental health as well. I mean, can you tell us about what kind of, how big of an issue it is, I suppose, first of all, that you've seen personally as well?
Okay, I mean, I suppose overall, I mean, mental health can affect 1 in 4 of the population, according to the most recent statistics. Policing is no different from that. It's an extremely stressful profession, and I think it's incumbent upon me as head of the organisation to ensure that I do all I can to ensure that our staff have a good access to mental and physical well-being material, access to people who can help them in times that they need help, and that we're not an organisation that hides it away. Part of it is about changing the culture in organisations and ensuring that people are prepared to talk about when they do have mental health issues, so they can get someone to help them, so they can turn for help to people. And we're doing an awful lot of work at the moment to ensure that people have access to whatever facility they need to help them through a difficult time in their lives, because mental health issues are no different from physical health issues. They need to be treated, they need to be addressed, and in doing so, we can then provide the best possible workforce that can do all they can to protect the public of Merseyside, to look after the public of Merseyside, and do that in the right mental health, mental frame of mind and physical frame of mind. So the well-being approach is exceptionally important.
You talk about that, changing that culture. What do you think needs sort of addressing, particularly, I suppose, that you've seen in the police? I suppose I suppose it's not an issue for just the police, but maybe what you've seen that really needs changing first of all.
Well, I think firstly the education has been a critical part of that, and ensuring that our officers and staff recognise, both in themselves and members of the public, any mental health issues that are occurring. It's difficult in an organisation like policing, which once upon a time was a really macho culture, not so much now, but it's very much, for some police officers, difficult to talk about issues that they have in themselves. As a result of that, they can often suffer in silence. They can often go off sick and mask the reason they're off sick with another reason because of any sort of stigma that may be attached to mental health. Part of my role is ensuring there's no stigma attached to it whatsoever. The most important thing to me and the most important thing to my senior officers is ensuring that people are in the best frame of mind and as healthy as possible to do a job for the public of Merseyside. In doing that, it's incumbent upon me to ensure that I offer whatever services I can to ensure that's the case.
You, of course, have come through the ranks of Merseyside Police. You've seen every sort of area of it is to in the police. When can I ask you? When did you notice it to become a particular issue on a personal level, where you thought, well, this needs addressing? Maybe even before you were Chief Constable, actually the powers that be need to sort of look at this as an issue that really needs addressing straight away.
I think mental health's always been an issue. I mean, as a young police officer, I dealt with plenty of mental health issues, and I was on patrol many, many years ago. I don't think that's changed. What I do think has changed is the understanding of society in relation to mental health issues. As the head of the organisation here, I need to ensure as many of our staff as possible understand what the problems are that they're facing them in community and what the problems are they're facing them in doing a stressful job on a daily basis. I mean, we have less police officers now, less police staff now. So the job will become, without a shadow of a doubt, more stressful and more difficult. Society is a far more complex place now. It's difficult for staff running homes in a busy, stressful environment like policing, dealing with other people's problems all the time, will take a toll on you. There's no two ways about that. And that's not something to be ashamed of. That's not something to run away from. That's something to share and make sure that you get the appropriate treatment in relation to it. Because as I said before, mental health affects 1 in 4 people in the population over their lifetime. It's happening. We need to understand it. We need to do all we can to address it.
So for anybody in the police at the moment who does need help, maybe they come to their commanding officer, somebody, a confidant, and they need help from, maybe support from the force, where can they go to? What kind of things are in place at the moment in time for people to get help?
Numerous things. I mean, we've just signed together with the Commission the Blue Light Time to Change pledge, which sets out our determination to have a working environment where we can talk about issues, where we can share the problems, and where, as an organisation, we will respond to those problems and not ignore them and not put them on a back seat. We provide ambassadors throughout the force. We provide individuals on a peer network who people can talk to if they have issues. We have a really strong occupational health unit that employs a psychotherapist and employs mental health nurses to ensure that our staff can get access quickly to the right treatment should they need it. I'm committed to doing this. I'm committed to doing more as well, even down to mindfulness and issues such as that. I mean, I think some of the staff sometimes think I'm a bit of a hippie. It's not about that. It's about being able to understand and cope with the stress and strains on a daily basis. And I'm not ashamed to say I use mindfulness every day. just to ensure that I'm in the right frame of mind to deal with whatever I need to deal with on a daily basis. Because like their job, my job can be stressful. I need to be on top of my game, and that's one of the ways that you can do it.
How often do you hear of your officers maybe thinking that they do need help, or trying to go and receive help from maybe the services here, maybe counsellors and stuff like that? How often do you hear that taking place in the force?
You do hear it. I mean, a third of all our sickness at the moment, and we have a very good sickness record, but despite that, a third of all our sickness at the moment is down to mental health issues, whether that's stress, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, whichever. So it is a big part of life, and I need to ensure I have as many staff as possible on the streets to deal with the problems the public have. So in putting more resource into ensuring that my own staff have good mental health well-being, makes a lot of good sense for me, both on the caring side, and we are a caring employer, and in ensuring that there are as many people as possible on the streets at any one time to deal with the issues that our communities have. So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to do that throughout. Staff don't need to come and speak to a commanding officer. They can speak to people who are in the same part of the organisation as themselves. It can be difficult sometimes to speak to your boss about these issues. So having as many ways as possible where they can speak to someone who can put them in touch with the right help is really important, and that's what we're introducing throughout the force.
And that's really paints a picture. A third of sick days. I mean, can you sort of give it a bit of context if you can in terms of how big that is? A third of all 6 days. Are we talking, hundreds, thousands of hours lost, I suppose, over the year?
Yeah, it'll be thousands of hours over the year. I mean, Merseyside Police's sickness record compared to a lot of other organisations across the country is very, very good. But that's still a third of all sickness hours that are due to mental health issues. So we need to get people to talk about it. We need to implement a culture where people aren't afraid to talk about it, where they seek help at an early stage. Because quite often, if you leave it, the problem can become worse. We also need to ensure that we get people to get proper financial advice, because financial issues can cause stress. Home life, work balance issues can cause stress. So right through the organisation, that mental and physical well-being is really important to me and really important to Merseyside Police.
Do you see that there's a change already? I mean, I suppose we're all talking about mental health now a bit more, aren't we? The idea that we should open up a bit more, we should talk to people of how we're feeling. Do you think that, have you seen sort of positive change already with the amount of officers maybe coming forward and saying, yep, I'm finding it a bit tough at the moment. I do need help.
Daily, I'm told by my senior officers and other officers about people who are coming forward to say they've got this issue. Usually caught early. On occasions it's not caught early, and that's when the more significant problems can occur. Sadly, we've had a small number of suicides among police officers and staff over the last few years. One is one too many. If we can solve that, if we can prevent that at an early stage, that's what we need to do. We can only do that about creating an environment where people are happy to talk if they're under significant stress and pressure, if they have financial issues, not hide it away. We're not going to come down on people like a ton of bricks because either they're unwell or they've got financial issues. We will work with them to sort them out, because I want my workforce to be at the top of the game on a daily basis, because that's where the community gets the best service.
Chief Constable Andy Cook of Merseyside Police, thanks very much for joining us on Liverpool Live today.
Thank you.
So that's the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police, Andy Cook, speaking to our reporter Adam Phillips, and talking about mental health in a really frank and open and honest way. This is a guy who considers his own mindfulness each and every day. So good to get that on, and interesting to hear from him speaking at the back end of last year. Now, because we get a little bit more time in the podcast that we don't normally get in the live radio programme, I've got a little bit of time to tell you about the Fallen Angels Dance Theatre. They are a group of guys and gals that are involved in some great work when it comes to mental health, recovery, and finding an open path for yourself when you might be dealing with mental health problems, anxiety, addiction, recovery. They have a new show called Upon Awakening, a performance of which you can see at Edgehill University tonight. That's as we're recording the podcast today. That's the 30th of January, and tomorrow, the 31st of January, at the Capstan Theatre in Liverpool. They've also then got a date on the 2nd of February at the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden. The guys join me in the studio to tell me all about the work that they do and some of the reasons why people get involved in the Fallen Angels Dance Theatre.
Radio City Talk. Tackling the stigma.
I'm going to talk now with a group of people who do things, well, a little bit differently. It's the Fallen Angels Dance Theatre, and we have with us in the studio the director, Paul Bays-Kitcher. Paul, morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning.
Andrew Miller, who's a volunteer, been there for 2 years, and Ian Brown, who's been accessing the projects there for 6 months. Great to see you all. Thank you for coming on board. Fallen Angels Dance Theatre. Paul, I'll start with you. Just tell us the idea behind it, because it's a theatre group with a difference, isn't it?
That's right. We're all in recovery from drug and alcoholism. And what we do, we explore people's journeys through authentic movement. And I think when you say, because obviously it's called dance theatre, and I think sometimes when you mention dance, people run a mile. But we actually kind of express people's journeys through, I've said that before, haven't I? Authentic movement. Yeah, so it's quite a powerful thing. And we always get the most unlikely people that come to see us and join in. We've done projects in prisons, and we've got a fantastic group here in Liverpool, which is based at Bluecoats, and that's on a Thursday from 3 till 5. Yeah.
Is it about recovery? Is it about therapy? What's the value in it?
Well, we usually start the process with some like a check-in to see where people are at, because obviously people bring different things into the group. You know, some people suffer from like high anxiety, and some people suffer from depression, and some people suffer from agoraphobia. So it's really connecting people as a group to see where people are at, and then we'll do certain kind of breathing techniques and meditation. And then through that meditation, we'll take people on a journey of expressive movement. So a lot of it is about losing the ego and letting go of fear, because a lot of addicts and people that are in recovery, well, the reason why they use is because of fear, basically. So we're trying to kind of get rid of that and let go of self. And then once that happens, you create this amazing energy in the studio. And then the movement just takes a journey of its own, and it's really a powerful, powerful thing.
And the people in recovery who come to Fallen Angels, do they have a history of being involved in dance or theatre, or is there a moment in which you go, right, and now we're going to dance a bit? And do they think, oh, this is a bit weird, or this isn't something I've done before, or this is something which hasn't maybe come naturally to me in the past?
Yeah, well, I mean, we get people from all walks of life. I mean, there was one guy that came, and he was a fantastic drawer. He was an artist. He was about 65 years of age. And he told me in no certain terms he was going to dance. He was like, I'm not dancing, no way, you know. And he came along and he just started drawing in the group. And then we had him in the performance, actually just drawing in the performance. And it was like the dancers were interpreting what he was drawing, his emotions and feelings and his journey. And so we just had him then. And then a week later, he came into the session and he was sitting there and he just took his shoes off and started joining in. And like an hour into the session, we always have a break after an hour, and he was downstairs and he was like in the Bluecoats in the middle of the foyer doing this amazing movement in front of everybody, going, wow, I've got it now, I've got it, I can feel it, you know. And because he's an artist, he can, obviously he articulates his journey through painting and drawing and stuff like that. So he totally got it, that you can actually express yourself through movement, through your own movement. And I think that's quite a healing thing as well, because usually people come into our sessions and sometimes they're broken, and you know, in a short space of time, I've never met anybody that's come out of the session and gone, oh, that was terrible. You know, they always come out lighter, and I think there's something about a connection with each other as well, because we're like a tight family, and it's not just about the dance, it's about the community. And you know, and we talk about values, like what we're putting into society rather than taking out, and what we're reading, what we're looking at, like drinking water and diet and stuff like that. And you know, the impact that has on the individual filters down to people's families as well, you know, people that got children, because their behaviour starts to change. And so, you know, it has that ripple effect of kindness, which is quite a powerful thing. And you'd never think in a million years that would come out of a dance session.
I was going to say, let's bring Andrew in on this. You've been a volunteer for 2 years with Fallen Angels Dance Theatre. What have you seen in that 2-year period? What is it for you that keeps you going back?
Well, I think it's people come in. it was my own experience as well. A little bit curious. Not particularly wanting to dance. And it was. I thought, well, I'll go along. It sounds quite artistic. It'd be good to have a look. I'll make my excuses when it's time to dance, or I'll just see it through. Because it was at a time when I was really seeking out just connections with people. I think there's some great recovery services in Liverpool. It's no coincidence a lot of them, do promote, creative arts, because for my part, I was just very much become very introverted, and just little ways of expressing myself. And with other people as well, I started to make a big difference in the way I start to treat other people.
I was going to ask you, what position were you coming from when you started working with the group? You said you were particularly introverted. Was that because you had your own personal demons, would you say?
Yes, I just got into a situation where I just retreated from other people. For many years, I didn't really know why I was acting the way I was, and I didn't want to be acting that way, but I just found myself acting out of with no self-control. And
but of all those options that you saw before you, then there was something about the arts, there was something about dance, or there was something about Fallen Angels where you thought that can be a journey, that can be a path for me.
Well, it's because a friend invited me, a friend who's still a member of the group and has gone on to be become a professional dancer. He's performing with the Fallen Angels in a big performance coming up. I just seen his enthusiasm, and I felt sort of obliged to him, to sort of take him up on his invitation, his kind invitation.
And did you get it? Did you get it from the first day that you went in?
I really did, yes. And I've seen it in other people as well. It was something to do with just the actual movement. I don't know why it happens. I've just seen it happen so many times. It happened to me. It was just connecting what I was thinking with just a movement. Another member of the group explained to me that the body stores up a lot of memories, and for years I'd just been so hunched up inside myself, in my own head, and just to actually use my body to kind of express what had been going on.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it, and I think people think about the way that they have their own issues as well, and this idea that you can represent them in a different way to, I don't want to say standard counselling or therapies, or ways that people find their own way back into sort of regular life and so on and so forth, but to do it through the arts, to do it through dance, is a really interesting way. Let's bring Ian in on this one. Ian, just tell us about how you got involved in the Fallen Angels sort of dance theatre, and what it was for you about the group that you like.
Okay, well, I was in rehab in Runcorn, and there was a lady affiliated with the charity who actually came and taught us dance once a week for an hour. I had done ballet for 2 terms, I think, when I was about 9 at school, but I was in the National Youth Theatre when I was younger. And it was the highlight of my week in treatment. Obviously, you're sat around doing a lot of really intensive group therapy and so on. It's a very restrictive regime. So I had, this amazing opportunity. So I grabbed it with both hands. And when I completed treatment, the lady said to me, you've got potential to be a contemporary dancer. You should think about it. And then by chance, when I moved to Liverpool, I got involved with a charity that kind of provided lots of different creative opportunities. And one of them was a class with Paul and the Fallen Angels. So I started attending classes. I did actually relapse a few months after moving to Liverpool, so I was still kind of in active addiction. I'd have sporadic, periods of sobriety and then periods of using, so I wasn't able to attend every week at first. But then as I got stronger in my recovery, I've been abstinent for 6 months now, I was able to be more committed. So in that period, I've taken part in 2 shows, one at Tate Liverpool, one at the Holton Rugby Stadium as part of the Recovery Walk UK. And for me, it's given me a sense of connection. It's given me my confidence back, because at the age of 30, I found myself having to walk away from my career in media. I had to leave my family behind in London, leave behind all my friends, everything that I thought I knew that was kind of keeping me on my feet, to start again, and it just gave me a new lease of life, really.
I mean, in terms of the time frames, how do you still feel like this is a form of treatment, or is this aiding your recovery? Do you feel like when you're in a dance session that, this is good for you because of where you've been? Or do you think, actually, even if I had no issues, this is the sort of a place where I'd want to find myself?
I'm a creative person, full stop. I think, everyone has an aspect of creativity in them. We're all creative beings. It definitely nurtures my soul. It gives me, so much. It boosts my spirits, and you can't really put a price on that. I've done many things in my life, but there are a few things that I can say that make me walk away feeling elated or elevated, and that's something that I get from this. And I've made so many new friends, and I've had just wonderful opportunities, even going to the ballet and stuff at the Lowry. I saw Ballet Rambert with Paul, which was an amazing opportunity, things I would never have done before.
It nurtures my soul and boosts my spirits. But Paul, that makes it all worthwhile when you hear people who've been accessing the project and getting involved in it, and it's good for them.
Yeah, it's incredible for me because my personal journey, I've been in long-term recovery myself, and every time I see these guys in the studio and the power behind the movement that they make, it fills me up, and there's this huge inspiration. I think everybody's giving to the group, and it's such a powerful experience for me. And one of the most beautiful things is seeing somebody coming in and they're really struggling and they're broken and they can't look you in the eye and they're frightened to death. Some people can't even come up the stairs. We have to go and get them because they're that frightened. And then after a couple of weeks, they start to ease up, and then, you can see the tension in the body going, and then they start connecting with you. And, and it's an amazing thing. And if you'd have said that, I'm in recovery and I'm passionate about dance, passionate about recovery. And if you'd said that to me a few years ago, you're going to be working with addicts in recovery with dance, I would have gone, well, how's that going to work? Because I couldn't see it working. But, it does work, and it's so powerful. And, and we've had some amazing opportunities, like we performed at the Royal Opera House in London last year. In the Claw Studio, we've had opportunities where we've gone down to the Royal Ballet. We're invited down to the Royal Ballet to see their premiere of Frankenstein, and we get these amazing opportunities. And I think the more these guys see, the more it opens them up to endless opportunities, and it's an inspiration for them as well.
Radio City Talk. Tackling the stigma.
Great to get the guys from the Fallen Angels Dance Theatre on the show. Best of luck with them with their shows at Edge Hill University, the Capstan Theatre and the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden in London. Fallen Angels Dance Theatre, type that into your search engine and you'll get all the information that you need from them there. Now, the podcast is available on iTunes on our Audio Boom page, so thank you to everybody who's been downloading it, liking it, subscribing it. Please do share with your friends, tell them all about Mental Health Monday, and if you want to take part with your own story, then drop me an email, mick@radiocity.co.uk. Maybe you work within the profession of mental health, and maybe you want to share what you do for a living and your own experience. It's mick@radiocity.co.uk, and Mental Health Monday is back next week.
Radio City Talks Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.